What's good, guys? It's TSG. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the latest council notes and breaking down all of the ins and outs and sharing my thoughts and perspectives. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into it. So this is the council meeting that happened on the 11th of November. So it was just a couple of days back, but looking at it, the attendees, pretty much everyone attended except for Santiago, which is completely fine. But more importantly, let's actually jump into the topics themselves. So the first topic of discussion is the Iluvatar revenue to the treasury idea. So for anyone that isn't aware, there's been a conversation that's been happening inside the Discord where a group of community members have come to propose that instead of us using the revenue generated from Iluvatars and using that in revenue distribution, they've actually decided and suggested that we should actually put that towards the treasury to help with the runway. This was met with overwhelming agreement and positivity, but of course there were a few detractors, as there always will be. So what we are going to do is we're going to hold a snapshot vote to gauge the ILV holders' stakers' sentiment on this particular IIP. We have done a poll, and that's where we're seeing that overwhelming agreement, but at the same time, there were no restrictions to participating in that poll. So whether you even had ILV or not, you could participate. So what we're trying to do now is have a bit more of a controlled poll or a snapshot vote with those holding and staking ILV. My personal take on this is that it's such a small thing that the detractors are just making a big deal out of nothing, essentially. Some of the pushback that we're seeing is the obvious one is that, we stake the ILV, we want the revenue distribution. It's pretty black and white. That's pretty much it. My counter argument to that is the amount of revenue that we're probably going to be getting distributed back to us is probably going to be so low anyway that really it's not that big of a deal. Like, we saw how much we generated in the Illuvium land sale with 72 million and how much we got back from that. Honestly, we're hoping for Iluvatars to do incredibly well, but considering the actual market the way it is now, the loss of interest in NFTs in general, it's very likely that we're not going to even reach that. So if the amount that we got from the massive land sale was not that big anyway, is it really something to die on the hill for? I don't think so. The second bit of pushback is, if we do this now, what's stop us from doing this again in the future? It sets a precedent that this is okay. My counter argument for this is, for anyone that got into Illuvium as a staker, you should have done the research already to know that you were buying a governance token. And what that means is that you use that to elect a council who are able to make changes in the DAO through IIPs. So this is what's happening here. You can't go back and say, oh, but they're not allowed to do this, when you knew that this was a potential. Also, this has actually been done before. Tokenomics has been done before in the past to stop seed investors from earning staking yield. So no one complained about that because it benefited them. So now they're saying it's setting a precedent, but it isn't really, just because it's already been done before. We're just improving it and getting into this DAO to begin with. The possibility for change was always here. Moving on to the next topic about Iluvatars is the batch 1 length. So tentatively, we've said 6 months. That's kind of what the marketing team has agreed on. Honestly, I was one of the few that actually pushed back on the marketing team and Kieran on this. I personally think for the first batch, it should be a tiny bit shorter. I'm not saying it should be 3 days, a week, or 2 weeks. Personally, I'd be saying between 1 to 3 months. The reason for that is I personally want batch 1 to be a little bit more exclusive for the fact that it is the first ever batch. Also, for things like partnerships in the future, having it more exclusive and inducing a little bit more FOMO in the first batch should technically, theoretically, push that number up. So when we do approach partners in the future, we can give them an example of, hey, look, this is the large number that we did in batch 1. This is something that you can expect, or a potential of what we can do. Spreading it out to 6 months, potentially what I believe we're going to see is we're going to see a bit of a U-curve where it goes super high at the start, where everyone wants to purchase as much as possible, and it kind of dips down during the middle months. And then at the very end, the last couple of weeks or last month, it's going to peak up again. Everyone's trying to get as many as they can before the batch 1 ends. At the same time, I understand why they are going for 6 months. They've looked at the previous traditional trading card games like Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, looked at their release dates and how they kind of do this. Also, the argument of actually allowing consumers to get some cash together. Maybe they go crazy in month 1 and they have no money to pay rent. So bills and rent come in month 2, and then month 3, they're going crazy again, and it cycles, and it gives them time to actually not go full degen, but still have time to be responsible for their life and then degen. So a 50-50 degen and responsible adult. whole life, right? That's kind of, I get that. It does make sense. So ideally, I still would have been leaning towards 3 months, but if it's 6 months, it's 6 months. Again, if the majority of the marketing team agrees, I don't see anything wrong with that. And if the council agrees, I don't see anything wrong with that. Moving on to the next thing right now about the financial reports. So the team is constantly trying to seek guidance on the appropriate means of sharing financial information publicly. It's difficult because we are a DAO and we're not a traditional company. And if we start to actually do things like a traditional company, like doing quarterly financial reports, that starts to put us into that realm of a traditional company and not a DAO. So a DAO does need to act differently, but at the same time, we understand the community consensus of transparency in finances, especially if we're talking about Runway with things like FTX happening. All of these things, they beg for more transparency, but we're trying to do that in a way that's in line with regulators to ensure that we still remain classified as a DAO. There's not too much more to add on this topic. They kind of close it out with saying that they're going to continue to evolve with updated guidance and evaluate means of sharing information requested by the community. So we're going to keep trying to get better at it, see what we can do, find a way to work with the regulators, and see where both parties can win. Moving on to the potential market impact on a raise. So this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while, doing a capital raise. Obviously, right now, the market going lower and lower pretty much every day, things with FTX and everything else that's going on. It seems like it's just not a great time to do a capital raise, which again goes back to why I agree with the Illuvitar revenue. If you have a long-term vision for what's best for Illuvium, giving up 6 months worth of revenue distribution to actually keep the DAO safe with enough runway, it seems like it's a no-brainer to me. For the long term, it makes sense. And even if it does go bust, which I'm not saying it will, but let's say it does, the amount that you've given up isn't gonna be that crazy anyway. And also, Kieran is probably the largest staker as well, so he's probably gonna be giving up the most amount in terms of straight revenue distribution. Going back into the capital raise itself, they haven't made any commitments to anyone or anything. They have been reaching out with the Overworld beta to investors to have a look at. They are trying to position themselves, but they're being very selective with who they want to partner with in this situation. Again, this is where I'm going to share my thoughts. Honestly, I don't want to see a capital raise. If I'm being completely honest, in this market, I'd rather hold onto our tokens and go with the Illuvitar revenue. Even if it's batch 2 if needed, I would like to keep our actual tokens and not sell our tokens at these prices if we could just do it from general revenue generation with products that we're putting out. I get that it might not be a popular decision because everyone wants their revenue now, but to me, it just makes sense that, yo, give it up for the short term and make a long-term investment. That seems a lot smarter to me than saying, yo, let's sell the tokens now and get that capital now via that route. To me, that seems like a last resort, if I'm being completely transparent. And another reason why I believe that about the capital raise is this right here. With the runway implications, how much do we actually need? Based on what Kieran's been saying, we're actually good. Like, we're actually fine. Honestly, he's got a bit more of a risk tolerance than everyone else and then the team. So they want a little bit extra cushion, which is totally understandable, especially in this market, in the industry that we're building in. The fact that we're a new IP and a new game studio, I get why they would want a little bit more cushion. They do say that if they were to approve the Illuvitar revenue into the treasury, they would feel very comfortable with an extra 10 million. And honestly, even if they're talking 500,000 over a 6-month duration, that's more than enough to actually make them feel comfortable and safer than what they're in now. And again, there'd be no need for a capital raise, which I think is the most important point of this. People are under the impression that we're struggling right now and we're running out of cash. We're good. The runway is fine. Everything is chilling. We just want a little bit more to be a little bit more comfortable and safe. It's nothing to worry about. And again, if we can just change the Illuvitar revenue into the treasury, that's all that needs to be done. We also have the sushi liquidity that isn't needed at the point, but can be pulled. So there are a lot of safety nets in place. The situation we're in isn't terrible. And the final topic, and this is something that I'm super passionate about, is governance V2. So the team that's been working on this for the past 5 months, we've actually completed the final draft of this. We're now sending that over to the legal team to double check and verify that everything is good. It all matches the classification of a DAO. The plan is for this to go live to the community within a week or two. And we're also going to have a town hall directly after this, maybe a day or two after that, to discuss everything, share that feedback. And also I know that Vedamore, Daraji, and Annie have a video coming out on that release explaining all of our decisions, everything like that. And we have tried our best to really maximize governance for what it can do, really put people in positions where they have the ability to shine and really showcase their expertise. And we have also tried to be on the other side, poking holes as we move along, trying to find out what's the feedback that the community might have. What are the things that people might be against? Or why are we deciding the things that we're deciding? Are we able to back that up with valid and solid arguments? We believe we have, and again, we're at a point now where it's in the hands of the legal team. And once we get that back, that's going to go out to the community and we can start moving forward with that. So that's it for the council notes, guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. For anyone that's worried about the runway or if Illuvium is doing okay, we're fine. It's nothing to worry about. We're just trying to look after ourselves and create a few different safety nets and just make sure that we are comfortable. But there's nothing to worry about. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.